Uh-huh. I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box, and you cannot compare them at all. So don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Woo. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. It is Friday, the last Friday in July, which means we are almost done with the last month without NFL football for the rest of the year. Dennis, how does that make you feel?
So, isn't the Hall of Fame game next Thursday?
It might be. It is usually right up at the beginning. I thought it was the week after, but maybe it's next week.
I think I'm pretty sure it's next Thursday. And I got to be honest, I'm stoked about it. Cleveland and the Jets. We're not going to see anybody important. We're not going to see anybody fantasy relevant, theoretically, though last year the Raiders played Josh Jacobs. But man, it's football and it's back. And it's the start of the season. We're heading into redraft season, getting ready to start drafting those redraft teams. Camp training notes are flying. People are getting injured. People are going on the PUP list because they're mad about their contract. I'm getting ready to gear up. We got the Fantasy Football Expo coming in a couple of weeks.
I mean, I hope you bought your Mega Millions ticket too, because if you win, that would be your one chance to feel like one of these NFL players. I'm guessing Josh Jacobs bought his ticket.
I got to tell you, I just can't. I pay so little attention to the lottery. Like the only lottery I pay attention to are free agent running backs. Those college free, like Sean Tucker. Give me all the Sean Tucker I can get.
You are correct. The Hall of Fame game is next Thursday. Some other news and notes from the week. Saquon Barkley agreed to a new 1-year, $11 million deal. People have commented it's not that much different than the franchise tag, but he seems to feel better about it. How do you feel about this deal for Barkley?
So I don't know. I'm conflicted because with all of the hubbub about running back contracts, this does not move the cause forward. I mean, it's across the picket line signing, if you ask me. But the reality of the situation is they have no power to do anything. They're not going to sit out in mass. It's going to be take what you can get when you can get it. $11 million is nothing to sneeze at. And when you're a 26-year-old, 27-year-old running back, I guess you got to do what you can do. Could he have at least finagled a "you can't franchise me next year" handshake agreement or have that written into the contract? Probably he could have, but he's looking around and he sees the direction the Giants are going. And if you look at what the Bengals have done with Joe Mixon, they basically said, yeah, Joe, we know you're not like an elite talent, but we want to keep you around because you know what's going on here. And the same thing with the Giants. They're like, if the market demanded it, yeah, we'd pay you more, but the market doesn't demand it. We want you here. You're a big part of what we do. It sucks that they're not getting paid like other positions, but it is what it is. What is that, c'est la vie? Or I don't know, some French saying.
Yeah, such is life.
Yeah. So I like it for Barkley because he's going to get back into camp. He isn't going to miss time. And we've seen it before. These guys hold out for a few weeks and then they come in. They still got to get in shape. Sometimes they get injured. Sometimes they're ineffective. Barkley put that behind him for this season. And the Giants are headed somewhere. I think they're going to be good this year. 7 slot receivers in all.
Oh, and the nice thing is they know they're going to have him, which is more than people who are rostering Josh Jacobs and Tony Pollard can feel right now. A couple of other guys got big payday contracts, and that is quarterbacks Justin Herbert of the Chargers and Joe Burrow of the Bengals got big extensions. There was more news with Burrow that we'll get to in a minute, but what were you? I'm guessing you weren't surprised by those deals. What do you think that means for good old Tua?
I did not see that Burrow got an extension. I know they're talking.
I thought he got it the day after.
I have not seen that. As of 2 hours ago, Ari Merov said Zach Taylor confirmed that Burrow suffered a calf strain, expected to be out several weeks. We'll see how Burrow approaches everything with a looming record extension. So they expect an extension to get done shortly, but I haven't seen anything called done with Burrow. Herbert, on the other hand, the biggest thing to worry about there is they've got a new offensive coordinator and frankly, a head coach on the hot seat because he's made some poor decisions during the game the last couple seasons. The Chargers need to keep their defense healthy. They've got playmakers and they just can't stay healthy. And if they do, that defense will be great. They need to keep their offensive line healthy. They've got playmakers on the offensive line. If they can keep all of those guys healthy and then their skill players keep doing what they've been doing, the Chargers could be a juggernaut this year. The pressure's off Justin Herbert. He's not playing for a contract. He just has to go out there, and he's kind of shared his frustration with the style of offense he's been in. So, we know Kellen Moore throws the ball downfield. This should be a big year for Mike Williams. Keenan Allen will still get his. It'll be interesting at 29 years old how Austin Eckler, does he continue to hold up? He's been pounding the table for the last couple seasons that they need to get somebody in there to reduce the number of hits he takes carrying the ball. Maybe Josh Kelly continues his upswing from last season. Maybe Isaiah Spiller breaks out in year 2 and is able to relieve that strain. But Justin Herbert, he's probably a top 5 quarterback this year.
So you mentioned Joe Burrow carted off with a calf strain. They're saying he's going to be out for several weeks. Does that make you concerned?
Have you seen who their backup quarterbacks are?
I don't know that it matters who your backup quarterback is. That's going to be a huge follow-up. Unless your backup quarterback is Justin Herbert.
No, man, I just looked at it.
I think it's Trevor Siemian.
It is Trevor Siemian. And a former Bronco is the other guy. I forget, Rippon maybe?
Trevor Siemian's the former Bronco.
No, there's another. Let's see.
Brett Rippon's with the Rams.
No, Jake Browning. Former Washington State.
I was going to say he never played for Denver.
You probably wouldn't have noticed if he did, even being the Bronco fan you are. Yeah, it's concerning because we know Mixon is inefficient, and for him to do really well, that wide receiver group has to take the pressure off the running game. And Burrow and Higgins and Chase, that's what they do. Take that away, take Burrow out of that equation. I don't think Simeon's going to be able to do that. So the sooner Burrow gets back, the better. That'll be definitely good for Joe Mixon. Now, Joe Mixon probably isn't going to, there's not going to be a big upswing in efficiency. He is who he is at this point, but he knows the offense. He knows what they're doing. He'll be in the right place, and he does have some talent. He's been a starter in the league now for 6 years? He's an okay back. He just never quite reached the potential, for whatever reason. If Burrow misses regular season games, it's going to be problematic.
Yeah, I certainly hope he doesn't either. Somebody we know is going to probably miss regular season games is Jalen Ramsey, who had a procedure to clean up the meniscus. They're saying they're measuring his absence in months.
Yeah, that's too bad. I know, Ramsey isn't who he was as a player 4 or 5 years ago, but he's still pretty good. And, when you're getting your knee operated on the first week of training camp, you're going to be out a few months, several months, couple months, whatever it is. The upside for fantasy is that if the defense gives up more points, the offense has to score more points. And while I like ADP, we want Waddle, we want Hill, we want Tua, and it looks like they're not going to get Dalvin Cook. Looks like Cook is going to New York. And so that means Jeffrey Wilson was, in startup drafts, Mostert's going ahead of Wilson. I don't know if that's the case in redrafts so far, but Wilson was the guy last year. All he has to do is stay healthy. Mostert will be the change of pace. He'll get plenty of opportunity, but it's more of a 60-40 split with Wilson. And then, a lot of people are high on Devin Achane. I think Achane and Deuce Vaughn, they're going to be in a tree making cookies with the rest of the Keebler elves. I like Jeff Wilson. He's going in the 12th, 13th round. That's a guy who could be the starter in an explosive offense this year. And if the defense is giving up points, that's good for that offense from a fantasy standpoint.
Yeah, we got a question from PJ. Will Tua stay healthy all year? Because he's going to need to if he wants to get paid. I think the Dolphins need him too, if they want to compete.
You're not a big fan of Mike White?
I mean,
the other guy, I can't remember his name now, EJ Turner, whatever it is.
Skylar Thompson.
Skylar Thompson, that's what it is. I know it had a lure in there somewhere. I think he will, because I try to be as injury agnostic as I can. So I do think that Tua will stay healthy. Yeah, it's crazy when you think, he's taking judo classes to learn how to fall down. I took Budweiser to learn how to fall down. It was White is a jag, but for a couple starts, he'll get the job done. I like what their offense does. They have, explosive in the short game that allows them to take deep shots with those two explosive wide receivers. Their running game opens up holes for, Jeff Wilson didn't run a fast time coming out of college. Raheem Mostert did. Neither one of them are very big. So there'll be plenty of touches to go around to the different running backs. But I would bet on Tua staying healthy. But even if I'm drafting in a one quarterback league, if I draft Tua as my quarterback one, I am drafting a starting quarterback as my backup. In most one QB leagues, I'm going to try to aim for a top 8 talent, and I'm not going to draft another quarterback. But if I draft Tua, I'm going to back him up.
I think Mike McDaniel, just to mess with us all, is going to make this the Myles Gaskin year, since he also came back.
I love it.
Brock Purdy cleared, will not start on PUP, throwing the ball, says he feels good. Good for the 49ers. Might not be good for Trey Lance. How does it make you feel?
I think the writing's on the wall for Trey Lance. Why they're not trading him, I don't know. But it seems like they like Purdy. I think they believe that Sam Darnold has a more similar skill set to Brock Purdy. And so that's the way they want to go. The only thing I can think is they're just trying. They want to play Lance in preseason to help generate some additional value to trade him. It wouldn't surprise me if Lance ended up in Tampa or Atlanta. Who else needs a quarterback at this point?
Yeah, the Atlanta one, it did definitely put me off potentially. I was pretty hyped about Desmond Ridder, but if they're looking to make some kind of move like that, I don't know. I guess we'll talk about that when we get to Atlanta.
As a Desmond Ridder person, I like Ridder a lot this year, and being in that offense. I think if Atlanta trades for Lance, I think if you can get him at a good price, you take a gamble on it. But I don't think he beats Ritter out. I think Ritter keeps the job this year. I don't think Heineke is a threat to him. I think Ritter is going to have a top 16, top 18 season for fantasy.
Couple other signings: Titus Howard and Andrew Thomas, tackles, got signed extensions, and Trayvon Diggs, the Cowboys cornerback, gets a new deal. Any of those deals make you excited?
The Titus Howard one. I love that Houston has locked up Tunsil and Titus Howard. They've got two really solid offensive tackles. They just drafted Juice Scruggs. I believe he's out of Alabama in the second round this year. He's taken over at center. Kenyon Green was a first rounder last year. They've got at right guard. And Shaq Mason, formerly a stud lineman in Tampa, is their left guard, or right guard, excuse me. They've invested some money to help keep CJ Stroud upright. I don't know who's going to emerge in the receiving game. We've seen Dalton Schultz be a very reliable, fantasy productive tight end in Dallas. Robert Woods has been it at times in his career in Buffalo and LA. I like John Mechie a lot. To me, John Mechie is just, young Robert Woods. So they're a little bit redundant. It depends, does Nico Collins take a step this year? Can he? It's his third season now? It's put up or shut up time. He's in that Gabe Davis category where now you have to start to be consistently good, not just consistently available. And I like Xavier Hutchinson, who they drafted this year. I don't think Hutchinson makes a big impact for fantasy this season, but I think going into next year, it wouldn't surprise me if their top three were Hutchinson, Mechie, and Collins. The wild card is Tank Dell, and I like big wide receivers, so that one's tough for me. But I think Dell can he can have a Hunter Renfrow type of season. He can be that, catch a 7-yard first down 5 times, 6 times a game, and all of a sudden he's behind you for a touchdown and racking up points that way. But we'll have to see. He's 5'8" and 165 pounds. That's not good. That's not good fantasy production size. He might be very much one of these better for football than for fantasy guys. So I would like to think it'll end up being Mechie in the slot with Collins and Hutchinson on the outside, and Dell as the fourth guy.
Well, today we are finishing out the NFC South, which will leave just 2 divisions left in our division preview. But the first team up is the New Orleans Saints, who finished 7-10 last year. Third in the NFC South. Key additions: quarterback Derek Carr, running back Jamal Williams, tight end Foster Moreau. They brought back tight end Jimmy Graham, and they signed Trey Turner at guard, and he's already been lost for the year. Welcome to the Saints 2023. Key losses: Andy Dalton, the quarterback, went to the Panthers. Marquez Callaway and Adam Troutman, a receiver and tight end respectively, went to the Broncos. Marcus Davenport went to the Vikings. In the draft, they picked up Kendre Miller at running back, Brian Bresee at defensive tackle, Isaiah Foskey at defensive end, and A.T. Perry at wide receiver. Key fantasy assets: Derek Carr was quarterback 17 for the Raiders last year. Alvin Kamara was running back 16. Jamal Williams was running back 13 in Detroit, and they have Kendre Miller. Chris Olave was wide receiver 25. Michael Thomas, wide receiver 117. Thanks for playing. And Rashid Shaheed was wide receiver 73 last year. And then tight end Jawan Johnson, who was finished as tight end 15. So, Dennis, what are your fantasy expectations for the Saints and the Derek Carr era?
Derek Carr is that just quintessential QB 18 to 24 guy that pops off every now and again and gets up there as a high-end QB2, low-end QB1. Change of scenery. I know that, he's familiar with Dennis Allen from Allen's time in Oakland at the time. And I want to buy in, but I just don't know how much better he's going to be than Andy Dalton was last year. Dalton was a serviceable quarterback. And I think, optimistically, I think Derek Carr is going to be a serviceable quarterback. He's going off at QB 22 in Fantasy Pros ADP, QB 25 in Dynasty Nerds startup ADP. I think that's appropriately priced for him. He's a guy you can start as your low-end QB2 in a super flex league. In a 1 QB league, you're not going to start him. Will he have some games? He's got some weapons in Olave and Rashid Shaheed to be able to get it done. But we're just going to have to wait and see. We know he gets squirrely when he gets pressure. I like Stafford more, but Stafford is a wild card. He definitely has, him and Cooper Kupp are the ones that can put up points, but I don't know if Stafford's back is going to hold up.
Yeah, that's my issue. If I'm answering, I'm taking Carr.
So back to the Saints. I don't know why they didn't just give Jameis Winston the shot. Winston is the guy that brings the electricity. I don't think Carr does that. Kamara, we're still waiting on his suspension. I have every reason to believe there's going to be a suspension. Probably 6 games, maybe negotiated down to 4, or 4 games negotiated down to 3, something like that. But there will be a suspension. Kendry Miller, I think he's a good talent. I don't think he's an otherworldly running back, but he can fill in for Kamara. Jamal Williams is a good back. We saw it last year. Jamal Williams is kind of the Matt Ryan of running backs. So he had a phenomenal year last year. So if you look at the history, he's probably not going to have one this year, but he's going to get the opportunity. He's going to get the short yardage. He's going to be the 2-down thumper. I hesitate to say he's going to be the goal line guy because we've seen Alvin Kamara be really, really efficient inside the 10-yard line, and Kamara can catch passes or run. So I think when Kamara gets back from suspension, you'll see a nice split like back in the old days with Ingram and Kamara, with Kamara getting more passes. I don't think any of the running backs, I think Miller is a guy you might want early in the season when Kamara gets suspended, but then he's going to go away when Kamara comes back, and he's going to get relatively few touches. I think Williams and Kamara will be flex-worthy to mid-level RB2 guys most of the season.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest question for me. How much of a suspension does Kamara get? And then wide receiver 2. Michael Thomas.
So hear me
can't.
out. Hear me out. Wide receiver 2. So we know Olave is the 1. Super versatile, great route runner. He's going to get it done. Rashid Shaheed, he's your smash play guy. Probably not going to be consistent, but he's going to provide explosive plays. If Michael Thomas is healthy, we know he can be super productive. As much as I love Ohio State, I kind of am out on Michael Thomas. If Thomas isn't there, I think Juwan Johnson slides into that role. And Juwan Johnson, we've seen the Saints do it with Marcus Colston. Michael Thomas isn't that much. He's as tall, maybe even taller than Juwan Johnson, and only about 10 pounds lighter. So I think Juwan Johnson is athletic enough to slide into that big slot role that Michael Thomas plays, and Foster Moreau steps up and becomes the tight end 1 for that team. Now, it'll still be listed as Juwan Johnson is the tight end 1, even though he's playing wide receiver. But I think Foster Moreau could be sneaky this year, especially if Thomas doesn't pan out, or if he only plays a couple games. As much as I want Thomas to bounce back, to me, he's a throw-in guy if I'm making a deal.
Yeah, and when you look though at values, nothing incredibly jumps out. I guess maybe I like Jamal Williams the best at RB 33. Olave is going probably high for what you think. Juwan Johnson was tight end 15 last year, already going at tight end 18. Should be about that range, maybe a little bit of a value. But is there a value that stands out to you?
Kamara he's in his 7th year now. He's going to be suspended. He's going at RB 28, and that feels like it should be a value, but I just don't know if Carr will be able to get the production out of him when he gets back. To me, the real value is last round Foster Moreau. That's, nobody expects it. If you're thinking that Michael Thomas isn't going to make it, I don't think as much as I liked A.T. Perry early in the draft process, I don't think he's going to be ready to step up and take over for Thomas. I think Juwan Johnson will, but I don't know how much higher Johnson goes than tight end 18, maybe 15. I don't know. Maybe he can get into the tight end 1 range if he gets consistent enough volume, but it feels like the volume is going to go to Chris Olave. So Foster Moreau could be a low-end tight end 2, and he's practically free.
So we come to the big question. How you feeling about them Saints?
Oh, damn it. I knew I was forgetting to open a window somewhere. All right.
Well, I can start. I think 7 to 8 wins is probably the ceiling, and 5 to 6 wins wouldn't surprise me. I don't really think they're better than they were last year. They arguably could be less good.
So I'm probably optimistic on them. I have them at 9 and 8 and winning the division. But they're just squeaking it. I don't see the other teams. I think they're going to finish last. I'd see Carolina and Atlanta, while maybe improving fundamentally, I don't think they're going to be able to pull out a lot of wins. It's going to be a season of moral victories for both of them. It may cost Arthur Smith his job. It won't cost Reich his job because he just took over. But I have the Saints at 9 and 8.
Well, you referenced those Falcons, so we'll dive right into them. They were 7 and 10 last year, but technically 4th in the NFC South. Key additions, they picked up Taylor Heineke at quarterback, Mac Hollins at wide receiver, Jesse Bates comes over at safety, Jeff Okudah at corner, Scotty Miller at wide receiver, Bud Dupree at outside linebacker, and Calais Campbell at defensive end. Among their losses, Marcus Mariota went to the Eagles, Olamide Zaccheaus, the wide receiver, also went to the Eagles, and Anthony Firkser, a tight end, went to the Patriots. Big names in the draft, none bigger than Bijan Robinson, the running back, who was their top pick. They also got a guard in Matthew Bergeron. Their key fantasy assets, Desmond Ridder played 4 games to close out the season, ended up as QB 48. Taylor Heineke was QB 30 last year for Washington. Bijan Robinson in the backfield is joined by Tyler Algier, who was running back 29 as a rookie, and Cordero Patterson, who was running back 31 last year. At wide receiver, Drake London as a rookie was wide receiver 31. Mac Hollins was wide receiver 46 for the Raiders, and Scotty Miller was wide receiver 123 for the Buccaneers. And at tight end, they have Kyle Pitts, who missed some time and finished as tight end 33. So, Dennis, what's your fantasy expectations for the Falcons? And maybe more importantly, is Desmond Ridder the guy at quarterback?
I think Ridder is. Like I said earlier, I think even if they trade for Trey Lance, I don't think Lance can take the job from him this year. Ridder's mobile. He's a good athlete. He's got a pretty good arm. And with Pitts and Drake London, he's got 2 real good targets. Now, one of the things we know, or we think we know about Arthur Smith, is that he loves to run the ball. Tyler Algier had a great year last year. What do you have, 1,100 yards, something like that? He had a really nice year last year, and they just decided we're going to take Bijan Robinson at number 8.
1,035 yards on 210 carries.
So, unfortunately for people who loved Algier like me, he had his one good season his rookie year. I think he's going to be a great pairing with Bijan Robinson. I could see there being a little bit of a Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara kind of pairing with Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, though with Bijan getting more rushes than Alvin Kamara did historically when they were paired up. But it wouldn't surprise me if Algier gets 150 carries this year, 170 carries. Is that going to make him flex worthy? Some weeks. I think he's definitely going to be a good depth piece. If something happens to Robinson, I think Algier, will he slide in and take all the volume? No, but we saw last year that he was definitely a startable running back. I think Bijan is going to be great. He's going as the RB1 in the Dynasty Nerds startup ADP, RB3 in the Fantasy Pros ADP. You know, he's going, the Dynasty Nerds ADP is Dynasty ADP. So he's going over guys like Taylor and McCaffrey and Eckler. These guys are all older. Bijan is a rookie with an immense amount of talent. So I think they're going to be good. And Cordero Patterson, he's going to be that Swiss Army knife guy. The secret weapon to me is Mac Hollins. He had a career year last year in Las Vegas, and he's going to line up next across the field from Drake London. And I think that's going to be great. You won't be able to take for granted the coverage in Atlanta. You're going to have to cover Mac Hollins. He showed that last year. A little bit of concern with Kyle Pitts. He's still looking a little cumbersome from the knee injury from last year. By midseason, I think he'll be fine. He's still an immensely talented tight end. The downside is it's going to be run heavy because that's what Arthur Smith wants to do. But I expect that Drake London's going to be, 23, 24, 25% of the targets. And that's great for fantasy. He's going to be right up there in the wide receiver 1 range. I think by the back half of the season, it wouldn't surprise me if Pitts is a top 5 tight end. I think he gets off to a little bit of a slow start as he's coming back from the injury. But there's no denying Pitts is an immensely talented tight end.
That's the thing. If he can stay healthy, they definitely put the fear of God into you with the options they can provide in the backfield. I think with Pitts and London, they have a couple of good receiving options. I liked the Hollins signing. I thought it was underrated. It's just going to be a matter of whether Ritter or whoever's in there can actually execute. And I think that's a big question. I've been a little bullish on the Ritter's potential this offseason. It makes me nervous that they want to kick the tires with somebody else. I guess I get it. But, I thought signing Taylor Heineke like you, I thought that was an affirmation, that they liked the potential of Ritter. I don't know how I would feel if they go out and make, a trade at this point for Trey Lance. But, looking at the ADP trying to find some value, most of these guys are going probably about where you expect. I think Mac Hollins is the one that jumps out to me, going as wide receiver 103. We saw him be very productive last year, and I think he has a chance to be much better than wide receiver 103 this year. But does something stand out to you?
Mac Hollins was my guy too. He's not even being drafted in the top 240 players in the Dynasty Nerds ADP. And I get it. He's older. He changed teams. Typically, wide receivers changing teams don't do great that first year unless they're already a superstar. But there's not a lot of options in Atlanta. Scotty Miller isn't it. He's not. He's going to be a slot guy, 3rd or 4th wide receiver. He's basically moving in the Olamide Zaccheaus territory there and just going to kind of do some of that. I think it's gonna the target funnel is gonna be London, Pitts, and Hollins, and then Bijan, however they decide to use the running backs. Mac Hollins all the way is the value here.
Maybe Patterson though. He's always been a decent.
I mean, I like Patterson. I just don't think you're going to be able to hit when he's valuable.
Yeah,
he's like a best ball guy. Every time you put him in your lineup, he gets you, 7 yards on 2 touches. You leave him on your bench and he gets 7 touches for a 95 yards and a touchdown.
The $1 million question is, how do you feel about the Atlanta Falcons?
Not great, Bob. I think they're going to come in at 6-11. Their biggest challenge is they were very weak on defense last year. They did add some assets on that side of the ball. I like Zach Harrison. DeMarco Helms, the safety, he was a 7th rounder. Clark Phillips, a 4th rounder. Couple free agents. Zach Harrison was a 3rd rounder. I like the signing of Jesse Bates. Will that translate on a new team? Jeff Okudah, so far in spring, the film they've showed of him hasn't been great. Mac Hollins has been eating his lunch. And I like Okudah. He coming out, I think he warranted being a high pick, but he just hasn't been able to put it together, and he's had a couple devastating injuries that have held him out of games for long stretches, missing seasons and stuff. I think Okudah has the size to move to safety. I don't know if he has the instincts for it. We'll have to see. Right now, they've got him penciled in to start at cornerback. We'll see if he can. I mean, he can't be worse than Eli Apple, I suppose.
What a bar. I was excited about the Falcons. I actually had them the last time I did this 9-8 being the division winners. So I'll stick with that. Now, I think it speaks, though, the NFC South is one of those divisions where I don't think any of the teams is great, and they're all going to be bunched up again.
Yeah, and it wouldn't surprise me if this is another one of those divisions where, they're 8-9 winning the division. I could see Tampa just as easily winning 6 or 7 games as 3 games. I could see the Saints going 7-10. Carolina could, because I think Frank Reich is a really good coach. I'm not super high on Bryce Young, and they've got a pretty weak wide receiver core, but they've got a decent O-line, and so they could offset it with Miles Sanders. Maybe Mingo steps up. Maybe Terrace Marshall steps up. Adam Thielen brings some veteran leadership there. It wouldn't surprise me if this is an all sub 500 division.
Well, fortunately, next week we're going to move from the NFC South, which is the well of sadness, to the AFC East, which could be another division where all 4 teams could potentially finish over 500. Monday, we will be starting with the top of that division from last year, which is actually the Bills and the Dolphins. So we will get, if you enjoyed our Jeff Wilson talk today,
be back more of it coming. Hopefully Dalvin signs in New York this year. So, my premonition is right.
Well, I mean, whether he does Buffalo or the Jets, he would still be in New York, right? So,
yeah, fair. True that.
Dennis, if the people are pining away for that Hall of Fame game that is still almost a week away, what can they do this weekend to fill that void?
You should go out and mow your yard, pull the weeds, water the flowers, and the whole time have your earbuds in listening to the Fantasy Football Roundtable. We've got lots of episodes. We've been covering teams for weeks now. You can see what we think about the fantasy perspectives. Hit that subscribe button. Give us a download. Give us a listen. Leave us a rating and review. We love that shit.
Well, we will look to see you on Monday. I think Matt will be back with us. He took his sabbatical while we were doing the South, and he probably will be back to talk Bills and Dolphins. Until then, have a great weekend.